Hi, I'm Chef Carol, and I love to bake. Being ketogenic makes it a little difficult to indulge in the bread that I love, but recently science has decided that if bread is frozen, it will change the glycemic index, thereby making bread slower to adversely affect your bloodstream, as opposed to a slice of white bread that's never been frozen. It will enter your blood system and immediately turn to sugar. I am down to my last slice of bread and I'm getting ready to run out to the theater. So what I plan to do is to get my mix ready so that by the time I get home, it will be ready to bake. So here I go. Now this is a recipe that I found in the New York Times, and it's called Simple Crusty Bread. Now to do this, I need water that's at about 100 degrees, but this is 100 degrees. And I have my scale. It needs yeast, so I'm going to just set this back to 0. I have a rapid rise instant yeast. This package is the equivalent of 2 1/4 teaspoons, which is exactly what I need for 1 loaf of bread. So I'm going to add the yeast. Now that brought it to 70 grams. So once again, I'm going to have to change that, but I may as well add in the salt while I'm at it. Now this recipe calls for 2 1/4 teaspoons of salt, but my experience with salt has been that that's just a little bit too much. So I am only going to add in 2 teaspoons of salt. So the recipe calls for kosher salt, 2 teaspoons, and don't make them heaping teaspoons, just 2 teaspoons. Next, I'm going to add in the water. 1.5 cups of the, that's 1 cup. And I have my 1/4 cup available, so I'm just gonna use 2 1/4 cups. And I'm gonna just stir that up a little. I am using unbleached bread flour. The recipe says you can also use all-purpose flour, but I have a preference for using bread flour. And I am going to need 390 grams, which is about 3 1/4 cups. I like to use grams when I'm cooking because it's far more accurate, and I just have to be careful not to go over my 390. Of course, it's always better if you measure out all of your ingredients. As I said, I'm rushing off. I have my 390 grams of bread flour, and I'm just going to stir this up. Now what you want is to make sure that all of the dry ingredients are incorporated into that water. And how easy was this so far? Now when you get your mix all together, it's going to look a lot like this. Okay, nothing fancy, no kneading is required for this particular bread, but I still love to make bread that you need. But I use this bread, I have about maybe 1 slice a day or 1 slice every other day. Once this bread is finished, completely baked, I will let it cool completely. Then I will refrigerate it so it can cool a little more, and I will slice it so that the slices can freeze individually. Spread it like a fan, put it in the freezer, and let it freeze. This way, when I'm ready for my 1 slice of bread, it's not stuck together. I can just pull out 1 slice. Now, of course, once it's frozen, I go back and close the fan up, tie up the bag, and just let it sit in the freezer. So now this I'm going to let sit at room temperature for as little as 2 hours and maybe up to 5 hours. So that will give me more than enough time to go to the theater, see the show, and get back here and make bread before the night. It is currently 1:27. I am certain I will have bread by 8 o'clock. We'll see you back here. I am back from the theater, and it's been approximately 4 hours. I was fortunate to see the new Spider-Man movie, and it was filled with excitement, and it really satisfied my need for action today. Before we get started, I currently have my oven preheating to 450 degrees. I wanted you to see that there are many different types of bread pans. I have several. This is one. This is a silicone bread pan. This is another one. This one is from the Food Network. It makes a little smaller bread. And here's one made of glass. There are some people who prefer not to cook in metal, so glass bread pan comes in handy. And then there are our old school moms who like to cook with cast iron. Now there's also a type of bread called Pullman bread. Now this particular pan, you notice it has a cover. But what that does is, once you put your bread in, this keeps it from rising and you get a nice square shaped bread. Everything you never thought you wanted to know about bread pan. I am going to be cooking my bread in a longer Pullman. It does not have a cover. And I am lining my pan with parchment paper, which I do for all of my baking actually. And I want you to notice that I have a cover on the bread. I failed to tell you before that you either have to cover this with a plastic wrap very lightly, don't tighten it, or you take a cover that comes with one of these proofing pans and you just lay it on top. You notice it's not pushed in, it's just laid on the top. I have certainly noticed that my bread has doubled in size, and if you look inside you'll see that it has definitely bloomed, I like to say, but the dough has risen. I'm going to take a silicone scraper. Now in the days when I actually make bread that has to be proofed, one of my joys after the bread was proofed was to be able to punch it down and then let it rise again. But this, as I said, is a very simple and easy bread. Once I get it so that it's not sticking to the sides, I'm just going to stretch it a bit. And I'm just going to drop it right into this pan. I'm going to take my spatula and just spread the dough across the bottom of the pan. I'm going to remove my clips. I have had occasion to actually bake them. So once you make that mistake once, you usually won't do it twice. How easy could it be to make your own bread with 4 ingredients, mix them up, let them proof. Now let's say you didn't have time to bake your bread today. The bread takes about 30 minutes to bake. At this point, you could just put it in the refrigerator. Now, one of the other things that I have to do in my prep, I'm going to put this halfway with water. So as you can see, I filled it about half full. And while the oven is preheating, I'm going to put this in the oven. This actually adds steam that the bread needs to rise. So this is a very important step. My oven is at 258. It has to get to 450. While that is happening and the bread is continuing to rise in the pan, I'll rest myself from my very exciting movie. My oven is now 450 degrees. My dough has been resting while the oven came to temperature. The water is boiling. I'm going to set my timer for 30 minutes. And in 30 minutes, I will check the color of the bread, and I will also check the temperature. Bread is finished when it reaches 180 degrees. I'll show you that later. It's been 30 minutes. The bread has a nice crust. That bread has a beautiful crust. And it is, after all, a simple crusty bread. Now I'm going to take my thermometer. It's always good to have one of these in your kitchen, not only for bread, also for checking the doneness of your meats. So hopefully you can see this. The thermometer is at 190, almost 200. So now what I have to do is let the bread cool off, take it out of the pan, let it cool completely. And then what I'm going to do is actually chill the bread. You could actually eat it after 30 minutes, but since I am going to be using this loaf as my bread for the rest of the month, probably, I am going to tomorrow show you how I slice it up and freeze it and prepare it for daily consumption. Thank you so much for hanging in here with me today, and I really do hope that this encourages you to bake your own bread. How easy was this? See you tomorrow. Good morning, fellow bakers. It's a new day, and my bread has spent the night in the refrigerator. I preferred it that way to make it a little easier to cut. So I'm going to start with a perforated knife. And the end piece for me is always the best piece. And if you look at the bread, you can see it proofed very nicely, and I know it's going to be delicious. I'm just going to cut this bread into slices. You can use a knife, you can use a bread slicing machine, whatever you have available, but this particular type of knife will cut your bread without actually tearing it up. So just give me another 60 seconds to cut through the remainder of this bread. Watch out for those fingers. This is a really thick slice, but thicker than I want for a daily piece. So now all I would do is move the bread so that when it's in the freezer, it won't stick together. And when it's almost completely frozen, I will take it out and I'll put it in one of these little bread bags, or you can certainly use these freezer bags. I usually use these as well. And then you set yourself up to a very easy, very nice and crusty bread. Now, once you take it out of the freezer, don't defrost it. Immediately put it into your toaster oven, your air fryer, whatever you're using to toast your bread. And that will also help to retard the amount of time it takes for this bread to become sugar in your body. If I were to eat this bread right now, just the way it is, it would be just as if I bought a slice of Wonder Bread or Tasty or whatever they sell nowadays. I don't even know. It's been so long since I bought a loaf of bread. What I would suggest that you think about is that a $5 or $6 bag of bread flour could probably get you about 7 or 8 loaves like this, and just imagine the money that you would save. I generally would buy a keto friendly bread and it costs me $7 to $8 a bag, and I eat it just the way I would eat this. I freeze it, but I prefer the taste of this. You try it, let me know how it's going, and I'll see you in the next one. Bon appetit.